Cutting back. New developments in the U.S. military presence in Iraq. Coronavirus crisis. Democrats and Republicans continue to debate the best ways to deliver another round of aid to the American people. Message to the faithful. Pope Francis tells us one way to fight COVID-19 in our homes and workplaces. And a special honor. The Vatican makes an announcement about a historic church in Kazakhstan. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, September 9th, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. President Donald Trump announces his short list of Supreme Court picks. These are 20 people he would consider to fill a vacancy on the court if he wins a second term. The list includes Senators Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, and Tom Cotton. Correspondent Mark Irons reports now from the White House.
Tracy, President Donald Trump made the announcement this afternoon. He says he's committed to nominating conservatives who will uphold values like the right to life. And the president says Joe Biden would do the opposite.
Radical justices will erase the Second Amendment, silence political speech, and require taxpayers to fund extreme late-term abortion. They will give unelected bureaucrats the power to destroy millions of American jobs. They will remove the words "under God" from the Pledge of Allegiance. They will unilaterally declare.
President Trump also committed to name conservative judges when he was running for office in 2016. That list included Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, the two justices the president later named to the Supreme Court. And our partners at Catholic News Agency will post the full list of names that the president announced today for you to view online. Meanwhile, the Biden campaign has not announced who it would nominate to the Supreme Court, but the former vice president has said he would nominate a black woman to the high court if given the chance. Tracy.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. Correspondent Mark Irons reporting from the White House tonight. Meantime, the White House is defending President Donald Trump's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Journalist Bob Woodward quoted the president as saying, quote, "I wanted to always play it down." But Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany says the president simply wanted to provide calm leadership.
The president, just days after having this discussion with Bob Woodward, said this from this podium. On March 30th, he said, "I do want them to stay calm. We are doing a great job. If you look at the individual statements, they're all true. Stay calm. It will go away, but it's important to stay calm." So this president does what leaders do, good leaders. It's stay calm and resolute at a time when you face an insurmountable challenge.
McEnany says the president has never lied to the American public on COVID, and his actions reflect that he took the disease seriously. President Donald Trump has been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. A Norwegian lawmaker said the president should be considered since he helped to broker an accord between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. The historic peace deal is scheduled to include a formal signing at the White House next week. President Trump has also helped Kosovo and Serbia put aside differences to reach a new economic deal. Vice President Mike Pence takes his pro-life message across the country. After holding earlier events in Florida and North Carolina, the vice president spoke today in Pennsylvania.
More and more people are stepping forward and saying, in this, the greatest and freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world, we can be for life, and we can restore the sanctity of life back to the center of American law. And I believe with all of my heart, in our lifetime, we will.
The pro-life group Susan B. Anthony List sponsored today's event at a church held outside of Pittsburgh as part of its Life Wins 2020 tour. The Supreme Court may soon issue a major ruling involving abortion. The Trump administration has asked for a decision on a case involving the abortion pill. In July, the Food and Drug Administration listed it among high-risk procedures and required women to travel to a doctor's office to receive the pill. But a judge in Maryland ruled against the FDA, saying the requirement posed an undue burden on women. The Trump administration says it's cutting the number of U.S. troops in Iraq. The American commander in the region says 2,200 troops will withdraw and 3,000 will remain. President Donald Trump has been pushing to bring home more U.S. troops home from foreign countries. The U.S. Navy is reversing a decision to cancel contracts with priests as a cost-cutting measure after an outcry from religious and political leaders. President Donald Trump tweeted this morning. The United States Navy or the Department of Defense will not be canceling its contract with Catholic priests who serve our men and women in the armed forces so well and with great compassion and skill. This will no longer be even a point of discussion. The Senate is gearing up for a vote this week on a trimmed-down coronavirus relief package. Democrats say it only has a slim chance of passing. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, Tracy, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell released the roughly $500 billion relief measure late last night. He says that Democrats have simply run out of excuses, and it's time for them to help the American public with yet another coronavirus relief bill. But Democrats say that it's Republicans who are the ones playing politics, and they simply don't want to spend more money.
Now, instead of improving their offer, Senate Republicans have made it even stingier.
The Senate Democratic leader wants the next relief bill to include hundreds of billions of dollars for state and local governments, more generous jobless benefits, and help for renters and homeowners, all part of the House Democrats' $3.5 trillion relief bill that passed in May.
Democrats passed a $3 trillion bill through the House over 2 months ago. Why? That's the need of America during this great crisis.
And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a key player in negotiations over the bill, says Democrats have already lowered their offer.
We have agreed to cut our request in half, taking it up, some of it up later, but for now to reach agreement.
But Republicans point to Americans' worsening needs, and they say targeted aid needs to pass now.
They're so desperate to keep working families from getting any help before the election that some Democrats are now attacking things they previously supported. At this point, it's just silly season on the Democratic side. They've run out of excuses not to legislate.
Republicans say their bill gives more money for K-12 and college assistance than what Democrats had requested, and it will reopen the Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses.
Tomorrow, American families will learn who wants to make a law for them and who is happiest if they get nothing.
It's important to note that tomorrow's vote will likely be a procedural vote, meaning that it's not going to be a vote on to pass the bill as it's written, but likely it's a vote to keep the bill alive and to keep the negotiations going strong. Tracy.
Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting from Capitol Hill for us tonight. Thank you so much, Eric. Thieves stole the tabernacle from a cathedral in Ontario, Canada, and the Bishop of St. Catherine's is pleading for them to bring back the consecrated host. Bishop Gerard Burgi says the tabernacle can be replaced, but he hopes no harm is done to the Blessed Sacrament. A broadcast of Sunday Masses in Belarus was taken off the air, and the priest who runs the broadcast says it was not for technical reasons because the Sunday Masses are still being celebrated. A bishop in the capital, Belarus, says the sudden stop shows the government is putting pressure on the Catholic Church. And you can read more about the disputed elections in Belarus by going to our sister station, our sister publication, that is, CatholicNewsAgency.com. A religious sister who currently serves as the vice rector of the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas has been appointed as a member of the Vatican organization that studies how the church should respond to social and economic issues. Joining us now is Sister Helen Alford. Sister, welcome to the program. Tell us, what will your task be in the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences, and what do you hope to bring to the table?
Well, I'll have the same kind of task as all the other full members. We have to decide a program of work together, and a crucial part of that is listening to the Holy Father, what he asks us to work on, but we can also propose topics that we think are important. So we have a yearly program that we decide together what we will do. We have an annual meeting, and also crucially, we vote on new members. So just as I'm a new member, people voted on me, then there will be votes on who could be future members as well. What do I hope to bring to the table? Well, I think I want to bring what I've been able to do in the last 25 years in the Faculty of Social Sciences at the Angelicum, which is developing a kind of transversal form of knowledge. We have in the Academy some great experts, Nobel Prize winners across various fields from all around the world, a very good number from the United States as well. And what we need to do is to bring all those skills together, those really deep disciplinary skills together in a transversal way that allows us to face problems, the problems that the Church faces and that the world faces today, because all these problems are multifaceted, and the Church can bring all those forms of knowledge together around the social teaching of the Church, around a clear ethical stance and position, and we can propose responses which can be useful for the whole of society, but especially also for the mission of the Church.
I know the Academy has a long history, founded in the 17th century. Can you tell us a little bit more about what they do in the Vatican?
Okay, there's two parts of the Academy. There's the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, and as you say, that goes right back into the 1700s. But there's also the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences, which was founded in the 1990s by Pope John Paul II, precisely because he was so concerned about the Church's role in modern society and about the Church's social teaching and how it should have impact in society. So that's actually the part that I am in. And as I say, we will be listening to what the Holy Father wants us to do. We're also listening to what other people say to us. We're kind of a thinking mind, if you like, in the heart of the Curia, giving advice, trying to support, and also sometimes giving a lead if we think that there are some topics which need to be addressed that aren't being addressed fully at the moment.
Sister, I know that you also focused your work on ethics and corporate social responsibility, as well as human-centered technology. How have these areas, how have they adapted in the time of the pandemic?
Well, I think what we've seen is the people who were already thinking about these issues, these ethical issues, the question about the environment, the question about the common good, the question about human dignity, they are the ones that were better prepared. There's already research coming out that has shown that companies that were taking what they call ESG, that's the terminology they use in the business sphere, environmental, social and governance factors, more seriously, they have been able to react better to the pandemic because, of course, there was such a fast arrival of the pandemic that you really didn't have time to think a lot about it. You had to work a lot out of your already existing culture, out of your already existing way of behaving. So the businesses that had already been thinking about that were much better prepared to deal with the pandemic. And I think that that's a sign for all of us that if we do try to live in a good way, if we try to run our businesses in a way that promote the common good and respect human dignity, we will be better able to deal with crises, because everybody will pull together around helping us get through that crisis, because we have been supporting them in good times and bad up to now. So I think the business leaders who have been doing that have really been helped during the pandemic to respond very well to it.
Well, Sister, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Sister Helen Alford, Vice Rector of the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas. Thank you again, Sister.
Thank you very much, Tracy. It's a pleasure.
Pope Francis says the best way to confront the coronavirus crisis is with love.
Il vero amore non conosce la cultura dello scarto.
At the Holy Father's weekly talk with pilgrims at the Vatican, he said true love does not know rejection. He also asked the faithful to build a culture that focuses on the good of others in our families, neighborhood, and in places of work. And in these ways, we can heal the world. Coming up, Bishop Shelton Faub tells us about an initiative to pray for peace in our country. And a look at a new Knights of Columbus series. In light of recent incidents of violence and racial tension in communities across the United States, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is encouraging the faithful in all dioceses to unite today in prayer and fasting to overcome the evil of racism. Joining me now on Skype to talk more about today's day of prayer for peace in our communities is Bishop Shelton J. Faub of the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux and chair of the USCCB Ad Hoc Committee Against Racism. Your Excellency, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, there have been calls across the nation for justice and racial equality in light of the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, as well as a number of other African Americans. What goes through your mind as you see the unrest throughout the country today?
Well, I think the first thing that goes through my mind is the pain of the Black community upon seeing, such things as has been visited upon them, and naturally a great pain for the violence also that has also come about in response to those killings. And I just have to believe that there is a better way for us to listen to one another and a better way for us to engage in discussing what we need to do to dismantle racism, so that very soon we will no longer have the incidents of the killings, nor will we have the incidents of the violence. So those are some of the things that go through my mind and through my heart.
Can we talk about the significance of the timing of today's prayer for peace in our communities to the Feast of St. Peter Claver, and also what can we learn from him?
Yes. St. Peter Claver was a Spanish Jesuit who ministered to the African slaves who arrived in Cartagena, Colombia. St. Peter Claver would meet the slave ships as they arrived in port and would go down into the holds of the ship. And there, I'm sure he witnessed all kinds of atrocities, but St. Peter Claver heard the language of human suffering, and he responded to that language. And St. Peter Claver spent his life both serving the practical needs of the arriving slaves, as well as being their advocates to speak out for them. And he is known as the apostle to the slaves, and today is his feast day. It's a wonderful feast day because it reminds us, I'm sure that St. Peter Claver was overwhelmed and felt overwhelmed at times, but he did what he could do, and that brought great comfort and consolation, I know, to those whom he ministered to.
In a video message on YouTube, you talked about George Floyd's death and also the atrocity of racism. You also said, quote, "Indifference is not an option." How can the faithful engage to help heal our present-day divisions?
I think indifference is not an option. I think, as we state in Open Wide Our Hearts, the bishop's recent pastoral letter against racism, I think that one thing we could do is read the pastoral letter. Today would be a wonderful day to read and reflect upon the pastoral letter. And the pastoral letter, at the very core of the pastoral letter, is a call to examine our own hearts and to acknowledge any racism that we might find there, to root that out, and then to become engaged in dismantling racism as it exists in our society, in our church. And we can do that simply by having encounters, by encountering people who are racially different from us and learning from them and listening, as St. Peter Claver did, to their language of human suffering. And that should move our hearts to act in constructive ways then, to see to ending racism as it exists amongst us. So those are some ways: reading the pastoral letter, encountering people who are racially different from us and are on the peripheries, educating ourselves with regard to racism, and then acting to overcome it.
Well, Your Excellency, we really appreciate you coming on today and speaking with us. Bishop Shelton J. Faub of the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux and chair of the USCCB Ad Hoc Committee Against Racism. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
In Cuba, Catholics lit candles to celebrate the island's patron saint in the capital of Havana. Despite the coronavirus lockdown, dozens showed up at the Shrine of Our Lady of Charity yesterday. The annual celebration at the Shrine of the Virgin usually draws thousands. This year, authorities allowed a limited number of people to gather outside while maintaining social distancing. The Vatican has named its first minor basilica in Central Asia. St. Joseph's Church in Kazakhstan was the first Catholic church under the Soviet regime in 1980. It has become the center of Catholicism throughout the region. The status of minor basilica is given to churches that have played an important role in the history of the faith. Up next, the founder of a religious order is on the path to sainthood. And we hear about a new Knights of Columbus series, Into the Breach. The Vatican says the founder of the Salvatorians religious order will be beatified next year. Father Francis Mary Jordan was born in Germany in 1848 and died in 1918. He founded the order to bring Christ to all people. He is credited with helping an unborn child believed to be suffering from an incurable bone disease to be born in a healthy condition in 2014 in Brazil. After beatification, one more miracle is needed, attributed to his intercession for possible sainthood. A new video series from the Knights of Columbus is assisting men with their spiritual journeys and offering tools to enhance their roles in evangelization. Into the Breach, airing this week on EWTN, is based on Phoenix Bishop Thomas Olmsted's 2015 apostolic exhortation of the same name, which called Catholic men to be prepared for the spiritual battle for their souls and the souls of their families. Joining me now on Skype to talk more about this series is Dr. Jonathan Reyes, Knights of Columbus Senior Vice President for Evangelization and Faith Formation. Jonathan, welcome back. Good to see you. So tell us, why was it so important to the Knights of Columbus to produce this series?
I think what's so important is that there's a recognition, not just of the Knights, but Bishop Olmsted saw this and so many others do, of just the crisis that we're facing as a church and as the world, and that a real response to this from Christ is his call to men to step into the breach, to say yes to the call he's given them. And they want tools and inspiration and practical guidance. And so the Knights, with 2 million members of men across the country and across the world, decided what better thing for us to do than produce a tool, a resource, to help men do exactly what the Lord's calling them to address the crisis in evangelization, the church, and the world.
Can we talk about the importance of Catholic men and fathers in evangelization, and how exactly does supporting them in that role carry out the vision of the Knights of Columbus founder and soon to be beatified, Father Michael McGivney?
We're pretty excited about that. Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, you know, one of the statistics that's out there that many people have heard is that the way you can determine whether a child is going to stay in the Catholic Church, the most correlation comes with the practice of the faith of the father. Fathers have, for whatever reason, a special role in the practice of the faith of the next generation, and we're losing that generation. That's not news to anybody. So any response that's going to bring the gospel to bear upon the world has to have as a centerpiece addressing men in their particular role as husbands and fathers, to say yes to Christ, to model that so that their children say yes to that. We need a generation of warriors for Christ. We don't need everyone. We don't need a huge number, but we need a generation of people who are committed to Christ, and that starts in fatherhood. It starts in the family. So this series is about fathers, it's about families, it's about sons, it's about spiritual warfare. It's for the whole family to watch, and we think this will really have a difference, and we know it's making a difference already in the lives of many families across the country.
You already talked about this a little bit, but can you talk a little bit more about some of the topics that will be addressed in the series?
Sure. They range all the way from things like manhood, brotherhood, and fatherhood to issues of life, issues of prayer. There's a deeply moving video on suffering and just how you deal with that. There's videos that go across the spectrum of life and just family life in general, and how to be in a family and how to order a family life. And what's so important about it, and what I think is so helpful, is that there's a practical side to this. So the videos are inspiring, but there's a study guide, and we have experts from across the country that say, not just go pray, but here's how you pray. Here's how to bring the rosary into your life. Here's how to live as a father. So we think in combining inspiration with practical advice, we're really hitting a sweet spot here and hopefully making a difference by God's grace.
As far as the viewers, what would you like them to take away from this series, and also from the witness of the Catholic men featured?
I think what I want them to take away from this is simply the inspiration to say yes. I don't believe that God has stopped calling men to greatness. The question is, are we willing to say yes? So that they watch this, if they can say, okay, Lord, my life is yours with all my problems, with all the difficulties I bring. And by the way, the stories in this are very earthy. To say yes, and to go to our website, kfc.org/intothebreach, to watch on EWTN tonight and the rest of the evenings of this week, and to just immerse themselves in this call from God and to have the courage to say yes.
Well, Jonathan, we are really looking forward to this series. Thank you so much for doing it, and thanks for coming on today. Dr. Jonathan Reyes, Knights of Columbus Senior Vice President for Evangelization and Faith Formation. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And you can watch the Knights of Columbus Into the Breach series this week right here on EWTN. Visit EWTN.com/TV for a program schedule. And as always, we thank the Knights for its support of News Nightly. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.